Well, welcome back, everybody. We just took a week off and are back here at the Elmwood Media Complex Studio B. Glad to have you with us. We got a big guest today because he won. Hard to admit, but he did. And I apologize. We're a couple minutes late getting on. The lightning storm right around the Elmwood Complex and knocked us out for a sec. So we're back. And again, glad you are with us. We're not going to waste any time here. Let's get in touch with as we try. There you. You there, my man?
I am here. Are you there?
You just got here, and we had a little power issue, so there was some scrambling going on.
I had a loud. I'm in Clintonville right now, and I had a couple of loud thunders.
Yeah, that was
about a half an hour ago. Maybe I know where they originated.
Yeah, right here in the Tri-Village area of Columbus. Yes. So I don't know. Did you see the slide? The updated slide for today?
No.
You got to look.
I don't.
If you can find it. Yeah, we're getting some errors again here. You can hear me okay though, right?
I don't have any.
You don't have anything?
No.
Really? So we're just going to start this all over again. We'll try again. And we'll edit in the post. As Kevin Rouch. Studio B here at the Elmwood Media Complex. We got storms all over the place. And it is not helping. So we're going to get back in touch with Ed Francis. Ed, are you there?
I am here, yes.
Okay. Now, we're connected again, but once again, it's giving me a little bit of an error. So can you see our site okay?
I could not, until our call disconnected, want to, it didn't want to load anything. And I hit reload when you and I talked for a moment. And now I see flawed slide.
Yeah.
Because it has a.
Did I lose you again?
Can you hear me?
Barely. Yes, now I can.
Oh,
so what did you see on the slide?
Well, I a steak.
A what?
Steak.
No, it's not steak. It's spaghetti and meatballs.
Well, a mistake. A mistake.
What is the mistake?
I don't eat meatballs.
No, that's what I ate. No one cares what you ate. What they care about.
I'm the one that won the bet.
Well, no, I know.
I think it
this is my
been,
ultimate.
I think it should have been baked ziti.
Well, it could have been. I tried actually to put Buka up there, and I realized I was going to be committing a copyright infringement. So
yeah,
I didn't do that.
Bad.
Yeah. I went for my meal because I think people could understand that better. And maybe it's my ultimate, kind of back and forth here.
I think baked ziti is a universal language.
Huh. Might be. I'll have to look into that. I'm going to Google baked ziti universal lingo.
Yeah.
See what happens. So, everybody, this is Ed Francis from First Ohio Battery, one of the hockey gurus in this city. And we're glad to have him alongside today. We know you might be in and out a little bit. Sorry about that. We'll try to not do crazy things. This all happened literally.
Can we blame the weather?
Yeah, I did, because it happened like 2 minutes. I usually get on about a half hour early and make sure everything's happening and working. And about 2 minutes beforehand, everything went dark. So that's on me. But more important, let's talk about the bet and just tell people why you won.
Well, because I know more.
Well, no, that's a given. I have no problem with that. But in particular, specifically in this case, why? What did you know more about, and what happened because of it?
I had the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup in 6 games because they were just deep and had better goaltending and had a better lineup. And in optimism,
Yeah,
you had the Edmonton Oilers in 7.
I did.
And it was Florida in 6.
It was. You win. So as we've now established, you're a vegetarian. And so we had to find a place, which we did. And, in my luck, we did that on Saturday after the Stinger Cup at the development camp, the Blue Jackets development camp. And we went to Buca de Beppo right there by the arena. And what did we find out about happy hour prices?
They do not apply on weekends.
That would be correct. So when I said find an expensive place, we did.
Well, I tried not.
I know.
To let you get off easy. And then she said, no, there's no lunches on the weekends. And I said, well, we're here for lunch. So instead of
yeah, right.
large portion of baked ziti for me and spaghetti and meatballs for you, we got an incredibly large go home and feed your family sized portion.
Yeah.
That I turned into 3 meals.
3 more meals here as well. Yeah. My wife had a couple. I had one. Yeah. Worked out great.
Yep.
I didn't feel quite as bad given that. So
I had a little bit more Saturday night, and then I had the rest for lunch on Sunday.
Right. So what we're telling people, if you want a lot of food all at one time, and by the way, that was also, there was some mozzarella bread stuck into that order as well.
I didn't care for it.
You didn't, it wasn't your thing?
It was average.
Huh. We scarfed up, the remains here. So maybe we're not as picky as you are, but I understand. I mean, let's be fair, right? We'll do a review, but you like the ziti a lot, right?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Spaghetti and meatballs was pretty good too.
I'm a pasta guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a safe one, right? With vegetarianism. Although you got to check the sauce, right? But you're not a vegan.
You do.
So you can have cheese and all that stuff.
No, yeah. Cheese is, I think, my main food group.
Yeah. Well, now, sure. Sure.
Yeah. It goes cheese, pasta, Sour Patch Kids. And that's it.
Yeah, totally get it.
I keep my doctor in business.
Yeah, boy. Well, let's talk a little bit let's do some business here. We have not talked officially on this broadcast about the Blue Jackets draft. And let me just preface your remarks with saying that there are a lot of people in Blue Jackets land who thought other things were going to happen and have not been shy about sounding off about it. To which I say, stop it. But then I'm going to let you talk. Talk about the draft, specifically first round, really important. And I think well done. And then people just don't know after that. I mean, nobody really. I mean, you're kind of taking a shot after that. And the Blue Jackets have been good in later rounds, historically. Not great in early rounds. But anyway, I'll let you talk.
So here, you and I think, are on the same page with everything, right? So Jackson Smith, you and I, we could go back to the middle part of June on this show.
Yep.
And Jackson Smith was a name that I think both of us mentioned as someone that we thought would be a good pick.
Yeah.
If they were going to go deep, if they kept the pick, right?
Right.
And they did try to trade it, and they had a couple of deals that were tentatively in place, and I think it's no secret at this point that they were going to move both picks and Dmitry Voronkov to the Islanders for Noah Dobson. And it came down to asking Noah, do you want to be a Blue Jacket or do you want to be a Canadian? And he's from the Montreal area, and he opted for Montreal. And I have no ill will against him for that decision.
No, that's the way you do it.
But it didn't work out there. You know, a lot of speculation that they tried to, make a move for Rasmus Anderson from the Flames. And that was before the draft. So easy to imagine that at least one, if not both of those picks would have been up for grabs there. Right.
Right.
But then Anderson only wanted to talk to the Vegas Golden Knights about an extension. Yep. So it's not like Don Waddell didn't try. So he had to make the picks.
Yeah.
And he did. I loved the Jackson Smith pick. Really excited to see what he does over at Penn State this fall. He said after, you and I got to talk to him together, and he said that one of the guys that he has watched growing up is Zach Werenski.
Yep.
So what
that
better
one is
person
over.
to, yeah.
Well, not only that, but just the way, and then what we got to see all week at the development camp was how these guys interacted, just those little intangibles that tell people a lot in a short amount of time. And he just seemed to be the guy especially on Saturday running that team. He seemed to be the guy that was the quarterback of that team, in my opinion.
Yeah. And he was for being 6'4", 200 pounds.
Yeah.
And an 18-year-old. I don't know if you noticed this. I don't know if it was something you were kind of looking for throughout developmental camp, but especially in that scrimmage. He might be like his skating ability is already at an NHL level.
Yeah. No, he is.
Yeah,
that's right. He and Lindstrom were just they're just different cats the way they skate.
Yeah. So Waddell said on the night that they took him that some of the scouts rated his skating as a 10, and that's a very rare event to have happen.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of players that may have just been lip service. And I think that for a casual hockey fan, okay, a guy's skating, they're all fast. They're all in the NHL. They're all good skaters, right? But after seeing him over these last few days, it was not lip service. That was a genuine comment from Waddell. But then B, you can see it with him. Like he's almost floating out there. It looked like it looked like he was on wheels.
Yeah. No, he's going to be really good. He's going to be really good.
Yeah. I think what you can do if you want to, kind of fantasy book it out and you look at where your defense is in 3 to 4 years, I mean, obviously you've got Provorov and Dante Fabro locked up for the next 4 years now, right?
Yep.
Um,
Right, and
Matejchuk.
I know you meant as a minimum, but yeah, and Pro V is 7 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, yep.
Well, yeah. But I'm saying if you picture this defense in, let's say, the 28-29 season,
Yeah.
you've got Matejchuk, Smith, Werenski, Provorov, Fabro, maybe Charlie Ellick as well. I mean, like you have the stockpile ready. And I think that Smith automatically becomes your best blue line prospect. So I think of it this way a little bit. When this time last year, David Juracek was the best prospect on the blue line in the Blue Jackets organization, and Matejchuk was a close second.
Yep.
And then you get through camp last year, and it's like, okay, this Matejchuk kid, he's really good. Like it was, I was surprised that he didn't make the opening night roster.
Yeah,
and
but
obviously in December he was up, right?
Right.
But,
and they said that he was an eyelash away from getting, being there. You knew that the first chance it was going to be his.
Yeah. So then exactly. So you move Juracek because he's a noticeably bad skater, ironically. Matejchuk becomes your guy, and now Matejchuk's in the NHL. Like he's not. Matejchuk is in the NHL from here on out.
Yeah,
I don't think
he's not going anywhere.
So now who's your best prospect that's in the system? Because it can't be Matejchuk anymore because he's here.
Yeah.
So now you've answered that question, and it's Jackson Smith.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And people should be just as excited about him as they are, or as they were about Matejchuk.
Yeah. And don't slight, like you said, Charlie Ellick. He's another guy that I think he had a nice camp and continues to have good performances here. So the second then pick in that first round is Andreanov, who love his personality. Young though, 18 years old, and for a goalie, wow, there's going to be a lot of development. And I like Gardner as well.
You do?
I thought they had pretty even camps. I thought Gardner played well in the Stinger Cup. He was pitching a shutout when he left. Gave way to Andreanov as they took turns. But there's something about Andreanov, his personality. He just he looms large over the ice. There's just something about it.
He when the draft took place, Friday night, and there were about 3,000 fans at Nationwide, and they had the room where they do the press conferences. It was you and me, and then the people that really know their stuff. The people that really know their stuff were in the room as well. Aaron Portzline and Jeff Svoboda and all those guys.
Yeah.
And Jeff, because he works with the Blue Jackets, he had a little bit of a few second advance on who the Blue Jackets were taking, and we were also a few seconds behind with the satellite feed and in the press room. And so there was a comment a couple seconds before it got to us of, they went off the board. And I'm thinking like, okay, they went off the board. I'd never heard of this guy.
Oh, me neither. I don't know how you could. I don't know how you could
in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think any of us knew who the guy was. But when less than 30 minutes later, Nick Backstrom, the goaltending coach, is in there, and 3 or 4 times in a matter of 5 or 6 minutes, he compares him to Sergei Bobrovsky.
Right.
You're thinking, okay, what do we have? And then you start seeing some of his highlights, and then you start seeing some of his numbers. And I think it was a 942 save percentage.
Yeah.
I don't care where you're playing.
Right.
That's elite,
Yeah.
right? Like the goals against, I don't have it offhand, but I remember the first number wasn't 1. I think it was, about 1.7, something in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, like this guy seems like he's got some ability. And then what really stuck out to me was the comment. I don't know if you remember Waddell saying this, but he had made a comment that, at the Gold Star camp, 90% of the players that they asked if they could take one player with them to their next team, who would it be? 90% of them said Andreanov.
Yeah. He just has that personality. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. But then you see him out there. I mean, you and I were ringside, Friday, and he's, he has this like cool factor about him. And he's shooting one-timers. He's taking passes from, I think it was Evan Gardner, one of the other goalies.
No, it was Gardner. Yeah, the two of them were kind of playing around. Yeah,
he's taking passes and he's firing off 50-mile-an-hour wrist shots and celebrating and lobbing the puck down to try to get it in for a goalie goal. And
the crowd's loving it. Yeah, crowd's loving it.
They were eating them up. He seemed, and he said he was a little nervous, right, through his translator, but he didn't seem it. He seemed very cool. He seemed calm. He seemed collected. I'm really excited about the pick. And he looked smooth out there too. Again, his going post to post looked really quick, and it wasn't, it wasn't cumbersome in any way.
Nope.
So there's a lot to like there.
Well, and just to remind folks, so the way that this came down was the Blue Jackets brass, most of them, went down and saw Andreanov at Dan Milstein's, what do they call it? Gold Star Camp. Is that right?
Yeah.
And it's down in Florida. Milstein is an agent who represents a lot of Russian players. He's a Russian himself, I believe, background, speaks Russian fluently. And so they go down there and they provide this camp for these players to just show people who they are. And Andreanov he's 18 years old, came from the junior league in Moscow. I think he'll be playing in the KHL this year as an 18-year-old, where he'll get incredible experience. I mean, it's not as many games in a lot of ways, but maybe you don't mind that either if he's getting good reps and, is playing a lot. Because goalies don't have a tendency to come out in terms of their NHL debut until later than skaters, that 25, 26 age kind of thing. So he's got some room to grow over there. He'll get good training. He'll get good competition. And with his personality, he's not going to be slighted. Like, he walked in when we did that. I don't think you were there for his press conference, but he
missed that.
He came in and Milstein was on the phone to translate for him. And, he walked in with a purple New York Yankees cap. And somebody asked him about, I saw it in Miami where this camp was and loved it, loved the color and whatever. And Brian Hedger's having some fun because Hedger wore a Yankees cap into the press conference and showed him the real color. He had a black and white cap. So it was just fun, but the give and take in that circumstance wasn't somebody who, I made a mistake in purple. He's like, I like purple. And I don't know, there was just something about that moment. And then at the end of the call, and again, speaking a little bit of Russian and married to a former Russian linguist, I heard Milstein tell him at the end, "Molodets," which means attaboy. And clearly he thought he had done a really good job. And the chemistry of that moment was exciting. And I hope, again, you got to put it on your enthusiasm on hold for a while, but we can keep track of him. It'd be fun to see what he does. But he's just kind of like a stocky, I don't know what they call him in hockey and basketball. It's a gym rat. Is it a rink rat? in hockey. I don't know what they call him,
Yeah.
but yeah. I mean, he's that kind of guy. Just wants to be there. Just wants to be doing stuff. Doesn't want to sit on the bench. Wants to be out there playing around. Anyway, really good. Okay.
There's a ton to like about him.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's going to be, it's still several years away, right? But it's going to be interesting to see kind of how he develops, how it all shakes out for him.
Yeah. A lot can happen between now and I mean, he probably has either a 4 or 5 year contract there. We're not sure.
Yeah, it would be end of this. This makes it sound like it's so long. It would be the end of the decade, really, before he's here. But even if it were 2029, that you're still looking at a 22-year-old at that point, which is excessively young, almost, maybe not unheard of at the NHL level, but not common for sure. Most of the time these goalies are 24, 25 years old before they're really kind of cemented into a regular NHL role. So there's patience.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes, and this is especially true in the NHL, is there's a few guys at the top of every class who, okay, they're gonna be in the NHL as a rookie and they're gonna do well. Adam Fantilli, Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, right?
Yeah.
But most of the guys who aren't in the top, few picks, it's rare that they are a difference maker in the NHL in the first year or two. And I think that there's an expectation of that from some people, because if you're an NFL fan, okay, well, the NFL doesn't have a minor league. There's no one playing in the Canadian Football League, who's signed to the Bengals, who's playing with, the Saskatchewan Roughriders of the Canadian League. So it's a different system. The same thing in the NBA. It's not just something that you see that often. And so the NHL, it's a different beast.
Yeah.
So we got to give it time, even though that's hard to do sometimes, because patience is hard to have.
Yeah.
When you're a Columbus Blue Jackets fan.
Yeah.
You're tired of being patient, right?
Well, it's gone on for a while. Yeah. Now
it's been a long life, right?
Yeah. Later picks. Do you have any ones that spring to mind as potentials?
Yeah, so there were. I hate that question, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because every year there's a 4th or a 5th rounder that I'm so excited about, where it's like, oh, this guy might be a really good pick. This guy might be a really good pick. And it doesn't always work out that way. So I feel like I'm going to say this, but then I feel like I'm going to jinx it. But it's Owen Griffin to me.
Oh,
he was a 5th round pick. Just his sheer numbers alone, really kind of stood out. He had in the Ontario Hockey League, he played with Oshawa this year. Just in the playoffs, 21 games, he had 16 goals and 13 assists.
Yeah.
He had 51 points in 62 games this season. Even though they got him in the 5th round, I think right around 160, it was 160th overall. He was in the top 100 on a lot of prospects list, elite prospects, which I kind of, think has a knack for being one of the better prospect sites. They had him ranked 81st. They called him intelligent. They called him a detailed 200-foot center who, plays bigger than 5'10", who's good without the puck, but then a guy who gets 16 goals in 21 playoff games.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to like there. We'll see what happens. But I feel like after the Blue Jackets had traded Gavin Brindley a couple weeks ago, I feel like this is kind of your Gavin Brindley replacement in some ways.
No, that makes total sense. Yep.
A guy up the middle who's quick, who's smart, who doesn't have a ton of size. He's not best friends with Adam Fantilli, but I see him as kind of a replacement there. And so I think that there's a lot to like about him. He didn't wow you at the camp last week, but he also didn't stand out for any negative reason
No,
either.
that's right. That's right. And in his workouts before the scrimmage on Saturday, he did show a lot of quickness. I mean, he was one of those guys that stood out for his skating. Now, I'll tell you a couple of guys that I'm going to keep an eye on. One is who looks like he's 10 years old, is Malta Voss. And Voss is going to he'll be playing at BU this year at Boston University. So we'll keep an eye on him. He's one of the, again, 6'2", 184-pound defenseman that, again, just so young. We'll see how he does at BU. The other one was the way he skated was Jeremy Loranger, the 18-year-old from the BC, British Columbia Hockey League. Again, looked like a good scorer. He's going to Nebraska Omaha to play. So we've got colleges to watch for sure outside of the Big Ten with some of these guys. And I just think it'll be fun to see how they develop. I mean, just to be that young, yeah.
This is no disrespect to the CHL, which has, the Western and Ontario and all that under it. I love the trajectory and just what we've seen in the last year of college hockey.
Yeah.
I think that it could be, I'll hesitate at saying this a little bit, like the next big thing, because you're hearing about all these guys. And now instead of, he's going to go play, for the, for Manitoba in the Western League or, wherever it may, or the Seattle Thunderbirds and you won't see him. Now a lot of these guys, especially with where we are in this part of the country, a lot of these guys are going to be in Columbus.
Yeah.
Caden Lindstrom, Blue Jackets, fourth overall selection from last year. He's going to play in Columbus this year when Michigan State is playing at Ohio State.
Well, and don't forget Strahl.
McKenna,
Strahl will be on that team too.
The
teammate,
goaltender, another goalie in the system. Yeah.
Yep.
Gavin McKenna, who's the surefire number one pick, maybe the next Connor Bedard. He's the overall number one pick next year, probably the Penguins.
Yeah, right. Well, right.
That's just how it'll go. He's making a decision this week between Michigan State and Penn State.
Yeah.
There's so much talent that's going to be in the Big Ten now for college hockey. Not necessarily Ohio State right now. That's a story maybe for another day. But it's really refreshing to see the college game grow so quick. And the offers that are coming in, Michigan, in the case of, we'll say McKenna, his NIL deal is bigger at Michigan State. Now think about even 2 or 3 years ago, but especially 5 to 10 years ago, trying to figure out where some of these really good young hockey players are going to go. And by the way, A, it'll be college, and B, these colleges are going to be paying him.
Right.
It's really exciting. It's incredible.
And I think you also develop as a person in the college situation. I wouldn't discount the value of that, of being in that environment as well and growing up, as opposed to just getting a lot of great people have come through the Western Hockey League or any of those CHL teams. But
certainly.
But I don't know. I kind of like the idea to round them out.
Like we're going to.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, 20 years from now, it'll be interesting to see how that has affected the major junior league. So anyway, let's leave that. I just thought then at the camp, the guy that you and I have both asked to talk to, me during the end of the season last year and you just a few days ago, to be able to talk to Jack Williams, who had a hat trick in the Stinger Cup. And, it's hard to say that there'll be any of these guys that would make the team out of this development camp. They didn't really do that this year. They went very young. But Jack Williams is pretty impressive. And his demeanor, for both of us, by the way, and asking to talk to him after games. I mean, he played one game for the Blue Jackets last year, and he was taking face-offs. You know, I mean, he was on the ice with these guys doing this and seemed to have the right approach to it, right? So pretty impressive just as a person. Obviously, he's going to have to develop the game. Maybe he does that at Cleveland this year. But I would say this is somebody we're going to see more of.
I hope so. He seems to have his head on his shoulders. He was kind of the veteran out there. He's the only guy who'd played in the NHL before, even if it was 11 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that I want to go back to something that you kind of said early on in that none of the guys in development camp really have a much of a chance at making the roster, with the exception of Williams. I think that speaks to where we're looking, or how we're looking as an organization. You know, how Columbus is growing, where you don't need to put a 19 or a 20-year-old out there because you have a guy like Charlie Coyle or Cole Sillinger or Miles Wood or Matthew Olivier in those bottom six roles. You have bona fide guys, and so what you can afford to do, what the Blue Jackets have now afforded themselves the opportunity to do, is develop these young kids instead of putting them at risk by putting them in the NHL too early and giving them too big of a role, or potentially even more at risk by putting them in the NHL too early, but then giving them fourth line minutes where they're not going to be able to develop their game as they would have been able to do when they're getting top line minutes in Cleveland. So now you can develop, overdevelop. Nothing wrong with that, but you get the chance to do that.
I am very excited. I was sad about, like a lot of folks, about losses to the team, people signing elsewhere. But the one that
Who
I
are
was
you upset about?
Well, you know, I'm a big Sean Corrali fan, but I understood that wasn't going to last. I mean, I didn't have any false hope. I'm sad to see him go. I just think he's a great ambassador here in the city. I think he plays hard when he's on the ice all the time. And I'm glad for him that he gets to go back to Boston, where he had a lot of success. But I'm thrilled that Coyle is coming to town.
Love him.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to do. This is nothing against Sean Corrali, because I'm with you. I think he's great. But I think that what Charlie Coyle brings to the team is far more valuable. He can score more. He's been to the mountaintop before. He is someone that's going to win you a lot of faceoffs, and it's going to be, I guess, with a guy like Coyle, where I'm most excited is what he's going to be able to do for guys like Adam Fantilli.
Yeah.
And maybe Cole Sillinger.
Because one of the guys that left, and good for him too, James Van Riemsdyk, who was
that's who I'll miss a little.
Yeah, I mean he was playing that role as a mentor. And so Charlie Coyle can jump right in there. And
he was. And
do the same thing, I think.
But yeah, well, he can do the same thing, but I think he can do more.
Well, I think he's on ice.
A natural center.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think he's still got good skills. I think he wants to be here. We had
he seemed very excited to be here.
We had a Zoom interview with him, and he just said everything right. Knew what he was, knew about the team, knew the names, knew who to talk, just that guy. Very smooth. And you could just tell that this is what he wants to do now. And I think that will pay dividends. Absolutely. And then you look at, it's interesting because the other thing that we've seen, and we'll end with this, is the Voronkov re-signing. I mean, Provorov, we knew that was going to be a lot of money because he had all the leverage.
All All of it.
He's
Every
probably,
last drop of it.
if you really had a true market, he's probably $1 million, $1.5 million more than he would get at that. But that was the vig to get him here, and re-sign.
Yeah, you had to do it though.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people are so mad. But
Well, I think it's because they look at other people and they go, "Oh, this guy got this," and there's just all kinds of distinguishing reasons why. But can you imagine what the discussion would be if you didn't get those guys you were looking for and you lost Provorov?
Yeah.
I mean, that's when the revolt would happen. But anyway, so that's a good signing. Voronkov now comes in, gets a couple of years. And it seems to me, and just reading some other reporting, that they really want him to show up in the fall in good shape. Would that be a fair statement?
He's a big guy who can do as good as he is, he can do a lot more.
Yeah.
A lot more.
And I think you're thinking as I that it's about the physicality of the game that he could bring.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things, people talk, well, we have the same defensive guys. Well, we really don't. Because you look at the blue line, I mean, you're going to get Goodbranson for the whole year. But more important, all these guys now are in the system, and you're getting Matejchuk for the whole season. But also, you've got some better defense, in my opinion, from the forwards when you add a guy like Coyle, who is a good face-off guy. Good
season of Boone Jenner.
Well, that's right. Oh, that's right. As a defensive forward, absolutely. And so I think the defense will be better. We always have questions about goaltending, and I would say, and I think you and I agree on this as well, that there may be a move before the summer is over there.
You know what's funny is there was a tweet from over the weekend from Alan Walsh. Did you see this tweet?
I did not.
So Alan Walsh is an agent, and he had said, let me find this exact tweet. I want to make sure that I get what he said right here. God, the man tweets so much.
Scroll down.
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? Let me sum it up.
Okay.
That
paraphrasing. Yes.
That he expects a very active summer with trades because the free agent market dried up really quick, right? Because teams had more to spend. So the free agent market dries up. But now, so there was less money that could be given out to players on July 1st, first day of free agency. But then, not only that, you combine that, and I'm not paraphrasing him anymore. I'm just kind of going into why I think he tweeted what he did.
Yeah.
But not only that, you also have the fact that the salary cap went up, so teams can spend more, but they had less players to spend it on, which means guys are going to be moving.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I there's still a bunch of guys that are mentioned. There's a couple of UFAs out there still. I mean, there are things to look at for sure. And it'll be interesting because that would, if they brought somebody in that had some experience, NHL experience, that would make the dynamic really fun to watch and see what happened.
Can I give you a name to keep an eye on?
Yeah.
A lot of reports from people in the know. Your Elliot Friedmans of the world, your Pierre Lebruns of the world, who have said for weeks now, if not months, that the Blue Jackets like Brian Rust in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. Well,
if you had the goal of adding as Waddell said he wanted to do, if your goal is to add a top six winger Well, that's it right there.
Yeah.
Now,
What do you have to give up?
maybe Cole Sillinger or maybe Igor Chinikov.
Mm-hmm.
I think it probably costs you an NHL player, and I think those are the two that I think kind of get looked at first. But if you go out and you get Brian Rust, you've got Dmitry Voronkov, Sean Monahan, Kirill Marchenko,